Hello! Now's the time to start planning for the coming growing season, which is just weeks away. A well thought out garden will provide you with an abundance of harvests, but you'll need to think strategically to get the most from it. So in this video, we're going to share some simple strategies for a super prolific, high yield garden.
The first step towards bigger harvests is to grow crops that are either very quick to grow, very high yielding, or both. Good examples of fast growers include radishes, which are ready to lift just 4 to 6 weeks after sowing, and lettuces, which may be cut repeatedly for a steady supply of leaves so long as the central crown isn't damaged. Other quick growers include most leafy herbs, spring onions or scallions, and beets, whose leaves can also be eaten just like spinach. High-yielding vegetables include zucchini or courgette, tomatoes, particularly smaller cherry varieties, and the good old potato, which will produce masses of tubers for salads, baking and mashing. Fruits are often very high-yielding for the space and effort they take to grow. Once established, apples, raspberries and blackcurrants can all produce astoundingly heavy crops. Take time to read the catalogue descriptions when choosing varieties too. Varieties described as prolific, high-yielding or productive will usually outperform other varieties. There's never any shortage of vertical space, and by growing upwards with climbing and vining vegetables, you can pack a lot more into your high-yield garden. Cucumbers, climbing peas and beans, sprawling squashes and vining tomatoes are just a few of the many sky-reaching crops that'll help you to pack a lot more into your space. Vertical vegetables are also easier to pick, and because they'll enjoy better air circulation, they're less likely to be sullied by disease. Avoid shading shorter crops by growing vertical veg at the sides or ends of beds furthest away from the midday sun, unless of course you have very hot summers, when a little shade may be welcome for cool season crops such as lettuce or spinach. Trellises, either freestanding or against a fence, are a really efficient way to grow these vegetables and will provide the support they need as they set fruit and become heavier. Make use of hanging baskets and planters attached to sturdy walls and fences to pack even more produce into your space. And of course don't forget vertical fruits, including wall-train fruits and cane fruits such as raspberries, blackberries and their hybrids. If space is particularly tight, then get clever with how you space larger plants such as pumpkins or tomatoes. Rather than growing plants in parallel rows, stagger rows for more efficient use of space and up to 10% more plants. Our garden planner neatly demonstrates this concept. Let's lay out some summer squash plants in this bed. Dragging out a block of plants using the corner handles gives us a block of 10. But now let's try dropping in the same plants individually like this. The shaded area here shows the space each plant needs to grow. By staggering the plants, we can fill the space available far more tightly, while taking care to give each plant the space it needs. You can now see that staggering our squashes has given us 11 plants in the same bed. Grow 2 crops in the same piece of ground by mixing slow-growing and fast-maturing vegetables. The quick-to-grow veggies will be harvested before their slower-growing bedfellows start to crowd each other and need the extra space. Sow both crops in the same row, for example carrots with parsnips, or alternate closely spaced rows of slow and fast growers, for example lettuce set in between corn. Take care not to disturb the slower crop when it's time to harvest the quicker one. Keep the harvests coming by planting a follow-on crop as soon as an earlier one has finished. This way you can grow 2 or more vegetables in the same piece of ground each and every season. A typical succession planting schedule might see, for example, lettuces or early carrots, followed by squash or tomatoes, which could then be succeeded towards the end of the season by overwintering garlic. Another example is peas or spinach, followed by beans or greens such as kale. Growing in succession requires quick reactions. Use fast-maturing varieties to give yourself the best chance of success. It often works best if you can start crops off in module trays or pots, so they're ready to plant out as soon as the first crop is done. Top up the soil with a layer of compost between crops to keep plants well fed and happy. The garden planner makes succession planting a lot simpler. Start by setting the dates that each crop is in the ground. Once you've done this, you can view your plan in a particular month, which will show when and where any gaps will appear. Viewing the plan in June, we can see that there are now a few patches of bare ground. So let's head over to the filter button to narrow down the vegetables shown in the selection bar to those suitable for sowing or planting in the month of June. Click OK and the selection bar is filtered accordingly, making it easy to peruse and select a suitable crop to drop into position. Let's go for this kale. There we go, gap filled. Finally, don't forget to extend the season to enjoy more growing time. Hoop houses, cold frames, row covers or horticultural fleece and cloches will all raise the temperature around plants enough to stretch the growing season by a couple of weeks at either end. Row covers, for example, will help to warm and dry out the soil in spring, allowing sowing of early vegetables such as salads to begin up to 2 weeks sooner. Similarly, placing covers over the ground later in the year could extend the season just long enough for one final crop of something like turnips. Dropping cold protection onto your plan. Let's opt for this row cover, and the software will automatically calculate how this affects both sowing and harvest dates. Let's have a look at the accompanying plant list to see how this works. You can now see that the lettuce under the row cover may be started off 2 weeks sooner and harvested 2 weeks longer than the lettuce without protection. We've stretched the growing season a whole month.
Don't be fooled by the simplicity of these strategies. They're incredibly powerful and are sure to turn your plot into a high-yield garden. Now, if you've got any other tips for growing an abundant garden this growing season, you can share them in the comments section below. And if you found this video useful and you're new to our channel, well, make sure you subscribe before you leave us today. I'll catch you next time.